Good afternoon. My name is Seth Young. I'm one of the founding partners of GMA Consulting, also involved as CEO at JefeBet, which is a sweepstakes brand focused towards the U.S. Latino audience. I'm joined today by the venerable Kresimir Spajic, who's had a very long career and successful one in iGaming, most notably recently launching and building the Hard Rock Digital business before passing it off. Today, the CEO of Betfred. And as I like to do with my panels, I'd like to share a fun fact about Kresimir before we get started. In 1998, he was the Finnish Hobby Horse Championship silver medalist. And at one point, he was a hopeful Olympic pole vaulter, but it was a really high bar, and he ultimately failed. Thank you, thank you. I'm a recent dad, so this explains a lot. So to the questions, we're not here for me, we're here for Kresimir. Kresimir, taking on a role like the CEO of Betfred in the U.S. is definitely a challenge. Given your experience and your knowledge of the space, why did you want to take this on? What does this mean to you, and how is it different than roles that you've worked in the past?
Sure. So first, good afternoon to the most resilient one, right? After the 2 days and probably of partying and listening to a bunch of other speakers, thank you for being here at the end and having time with me and Seth. Second, I'm happy that I got a third citizenship after Croatian and American, which is a Finnish. So I really appreciate it, Seth, from you. And look, as some of you know, and those that you don't know, I've been in the U.S. since 2013. I had the pleasure to participate in launch on the first legalized online casino in the United States. And since then, until recently, I worked mostly with large operators, right? Large casino operators that decided to venture into digital gaming, and my role is to do the digital transformation around these digital departments. So after 10 years of that, I'm back where I started, right, with a sports betting operator when I started in 2006 with a company called Bet and Win, which was now BWin and part of Entain Group. The reason why I took this job is because of a challenge, right? It's a very, very different set of strategies and views that you have to take into consideration while coming from a position of a power. Even if you're working for a large retail casino organization, usually it comes with a certain assets, right? When you look at the market in the US, there are kind of key capabilities that you have to have in order to be successful. One of them is brand recognition. If you don't have a brand recognition in the US, it's very hard, right? Second one is market access. If you don't have a market access that come naturally or for free for you, you have to buy it. That's a pretty significant cost, right? A third one is distribution channels, right? This either means that you have your own databases or you have access to the databases or whatever it comes for. And the fourth one is technology, right? These are kind of four key pieces that you need to have in this market that you can rate simple way as red, yellow, and green. And if you look at the top leaders in the market, and Chris and a few others have been talking about, this market is pretty monopolized, right? Top two on the top, third and fourth, far away behind them. And then you have these four operators even further, which are kind of trying to compete with the top four. And then you have companies like mine, right? Which are positioned 9 and below, which are below 1% of the market share, trying to find a sustainability, right? So this has been a big challenge, and because of this, you've seen quite a few exits in the recent times. And I think that this is not the end of it. I'm sure that you're going to be seeing a few more in the next month. So what you can do in that sense, right? I think the first thing that I'm going to start this is just being resilient, right? And persevere. You know, idea is the less competition in the market, hopefully you can pick up some of that market share that comes there. The second, I don't know how many people here are from Europe, but Europe is a small continent in comparison with the US, which has 50 plus countries. They have different languages and they have different cultures, and each market is treated differently, right? And although in the US you have these 50 states that speak the same language, right? The regulations there are some differences in regulations, and there are definitely differences in terms of how you enter the market, what do you pay in the market, what are the costs of the entry, what are the costs of operations, and so on and so forth. So I think for the small operators, the key is to look every market, every state as a specific state. See what the competitor landscape is. See how big are the duties, how much you have to pay for the licensing, and so on and so forth, and try to find certain assets and competitive advantages that allow you to be competitive in that market.
That's an excellent segue, really, to the next question I have. And everybody in this room probably knows Betfred as a very well-respected, large brand in the UK. That has not been the case in the United States. We haven't seen European success always translate to American success. So what do you chalk this up to, having straddled both worlds?
Sure. So, I'm new in the seat, right? 6 months in. I inherited what Betfred is in the US. I think many people 3-4 years ago, right, decided that it's a great idea to come in the US, that all what you need to do is get into the country and money will flow in. We all knew that this will be the biggest market in the world. It's easy to predict this, right? Size of the population, GDP per capita, and this need that has been accumulating for 2 decades or so without the regulator sports betting. What people didn't do and what didn't people think too well, and doing basically the background work and analyzing what does this mean. This is one of the most expensive markets in the world, right? Like barriers to enter here are extremely high. First, when you look at these taxes, duties are higher than in majority of the other markets, right? Then here you have something which is a market access fee, which you have to very often get through a third party, which come with a certain cost, usually fixed cost, which is extremely high when it comes to this. Third, technology. You have to deploy technology in each and every market, which comes with a cost, right? And then when you look at the cost of advertising, the cost of human resources and everything else, it just piles up. So it's not easy. Many people do it because of strategic reasons. At some point of time, if you're publicly listed in Europe on London Stock Exchange or Stockholm Stock Exchange or everywhere, and you haven't had a play for the US, you have been downgraded. And basically you have been punished on your share price. And then you enter the market because kind of being forced into it with not thinking too much. And 2 years later, you're punished again because you still haven't exited the US, because you're spending now so much money on this and you cannot recuperate that money. When it comes to Betfred, it's a company with over 50 years of history and heritage, right? Very known in United Kingdom as a very customer-centric company, known by our founder, Fred Dawn, who is kind of a celebrity in this industry, at least in the UK, always focus on the customers, very often giving high rewards to the customers, paying out basically wins before even the results has been published because he was certain that it will go one way, and so on and so forth. When Betfred came here, they tried to replicate something very similar. They tried to become a customer-centric a sports book. They also started doing lots of sponsorships, right? We are sponsorship of Bengals, of Knights, of Broncos, and several others. But there are certain stages in a company growth where this strategy has sense, right? For us, probably it was premature and too early to go into this, right? Because you first need to tick on those 4 boxes which I said. Build a brand, okay? Find basically market access, find that distribution channels and databases, and make sure that you have the right technology. After you have this, then you go basically and expand further from that, right? So we have lots of work to do and to revisit some of the previous strategies. And I think kind of going forward, what people have been always asking me, okay, what a small operator can do, right? I don't know how much you know the market, but there is approximately 50 operators at some point of time, sports betting operators in the US. Majority of them were coming from Nevada. In Nevada, you had like 20 operators, right? Right now, we are down probably to 15, 18, maybe 20 when you look overall, right, what to do. And what I said to everybody, first, you need to persevere. And you need to have a balance sheet to persevere. Because all of these people which are not in top 4 or 5 are losing money. So what's your tolerance when it comes to the capital, right? That's a big one. Then the second one, is this market really interesting to you? So even if you have a 1% of the market share, right, in the US, what does it really mean for you? Like Betfred is a very successful company. In UK, we are the biggest retailer there, and we make billions, right, in revenues and sizable amount in profits as well. So is it success for us here if ultimately we break even, become profitable, but this comes with single-digit EBITDA or something like this. So everybody has different goals. Some of them is just that they can say that they have a participation in the US with the hopes that this market, they're going to do some in these markets. Some are very profit-centric. You have to understand what are your objectives and why you're actually participating in this market.
So that's another excellent. I love how Kresimir tees me up for really good segues. It's a really good segue to the next maybe pair of questions I want to ask you. You reference a lot of reasons that it's very difficult to operate a brand that's subscale in the United States. This is a three-parter, actually. I'm curious what success looks like for you, what success looks like for Betfred, if those things are the same, and in the context of everything that we've just discussed, what is the sentiment in the boardroom at Betfred? Are we looking at, we've seen 888 pull out of the market. We've seen Kindred pull out of the market. We all know why this is happening. Not to suggest anything one way or the other for Betfred, just curious how you guys are looking at the opportunity now.
Yeah. Look, as I said, sentiment has changed 3 years ago in comparison to today. But it's not only with Betfred, it's with everybody, right? 3 years ago, everybody is flying high. Capital was very cheap. It was easy to raise money. Everybody was spending tons of money. Now suddenly, nobody is actually lending any more money. Nobody is investing anymore. Everybody is waiting for a return, right? So that's a difficult part, especially for the startup that has been financed externally. For us, as I said, we have a very successful business in the UK and South Africa. These are our cash cows. We use some of this cash to develop basically business in the US, and we are less stressed in terms of in terms of the cash flow, right? In terms of his expectation, is our owner always consider himself as an underdog, and he always really believed in perseverance and making sure that he's the last man standing, right? So that's his kind of goal and objective in the US as well. Can we be the last man standing of the smaller guys? Can we carve out a certain market niche that it will be valuable enough for us to maintain? I think this is the decision that every company needs to make. They need to also estimate, how much money they're willing to lose to get to that point. And ultimately, is there even that break-even point, right? This is what many companies are asking. I mean, I don't know how much you know about the P&L of a smaller operators, but usually they look, I lose from high single-digit millions to 100+ millions a year, right, by operating in US, depending on how many states you operate and things like this, right? So everybody has a certain tolerability towards this. But coming back to what I told you, I think that the only strategy really for small guys, because what is your proposition, right? You have these big names which are very flashy. They have more of a brand awareness of you. They have bigger balance sheets than you. They have better technology on you. They can afford to have bigger teams than you, right? Lots of benefits on their side. So I think when you go to certain markets, and I won't name certain states, we are in 10 states currently, right? In 3 states we are actually profitable because we applied certain very, very unique strategies, which are either related to our partnerships or the way how we acquire players or the way how we retain players. The question is, as I said, being profitable doesn't mean necessarily even a success. Because if this is like a small amount for the big effort that you're putting in it, is it better to deploy capital somewhere outside of the United States and launch in a new market?
Sure, but definitely begs the question of effort versus return. And I know it's a conversation happening across a fair amount of boardrooms. So we heard yesterday with one of Chris Grove's presentations that from a product perspective, the group that has more of the more will likely be the ones that emerge and win. And by more of the more, we mean more of a vertically integrated product, different kinds of verticals that a customer can engage with. This can be your opinion or a company opinion. Curious how you look at some of the more ancillary verticals in the space that are either regulated or unregulated, DFS or sweeps or other. Is this something that you're interested in?
Yeah, look, I mean, we obviously, since I came on board last 6 months, we are strategizing a lot. We are doing lots of due diligence. We are looking lots of strategy development and looking how we can actually move the needle, right? I think the area that everybody identified that would be great, not only the small guys, but the big guys, is definitely online casino. Right? Unfortunately, it's going really, really slow in terms of regulating into the new market. But we understand that sports betting is very liquidity driven. Liquidity is basically with the big players, and that's why they have an advantage. If you look actually global market, you will see that sports betting is always dominated in a certain countries and market by the few players. When it comes to the casino, it's much more diversified, right? There is a much longer long tail and much better chance for profitability. So we're all hoping, right, that at one point of time casino is gonna regulate in other states, and that's definitely an area in which we would like to go as well. When it comes to kind of what you call adjacent or ancillary products, I mean, they have always been present in one way or another. When you and I started here 10 years ago, focus was basically on free-to-play casinos, right? There was kind of an idea, okay, you're going to collect the database and then funnel this base when the real money came in. Now the focus is on sweeps, rise and prize and picks. And actually, these are a bit different products because they are generating a sizable amount of money. Somebody is going to question the regularity of this type of the businesses, right? But you know what I learned in this industry, that certain company that had unique competitive advantages ultimately have been able to create these unique competitive advantages and convert them into regulated market to be very successful. An obvious example of this is DraftKings and FanDuel. At one point of time, they were about going to bust. Literally. I mean, they haven't had capital. Nobody didn't want to put any more capital. 3 months later, what happened? PASPA gets repealed, and suddenly these guys are market leaders, right? Everybody at that time was also questioning the DFS. If this is a regulated product or not. So, I mean, what I learned when you look at historically, that certain companies that had a unique competitive advantage, even by operating in certain, let's call, say, gray markets and funneling this money into regulated markets, or generating money in non-completely regulated verticals like these, and then starting plugging this money into regulated verticals, could basically transform and change the market leaders and who is on the top, right? So historically this has been happening, and all what I can say that maybe one of these emerging verticals that are collecting now quite a sizable cash flow might disrupt the current order of the things. For us, look, we are interested, but we are a very regulated company. And it's always questionable, do you want to take a risk like this, right? Because what I learned is also flip of a coin. It can be regulated, you can be shut down, and maybe you spend some time in a prison as well. So,
well, I think that ship is largely sailed. I'm going to ask one more very quick question, so one-word answer. Do you think there will be more or less than 10 operators for sports betting in the United States by the end of 2025?
So I think on a national level, you definitely look less than 10. I think that you're going to see some, what I call, I wouldn't even say regional superstars, local superstars, which basically have a strong brand in one state, they have a significant database in one state, and they can carve out a low single-digit % of the market share, which is mostly related to their brick-and-mortar databases and creation of an omnichannel. So definitely envisaging 10 or less national operators with few very, very localized stars.
Kresimir, thank you so much for being open and insightful. We're out of time. Please give a hand for Kresimir Spajic. Thank you.
Thank you all.